I'm ready.
Thank you. You ready? We'll go ahead and bring the June 4th, 2020 Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Madam Secretary, would you please take the roll?
Clay Thomas,
Here.
Christina Hill, Lee Lawrence,
Here.
Brad Stanley,
Christina and Brad, you need to unmute your mics.
Kim Toulouse.
Here.
I'm going to go back to Clay Thomas.
I'm still here.
Oh, sorry, Christina Hill.
I am here.
There we go. Brad Stanley. Brad Stanley, can you hear us?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
and one nation.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Large, ethics law announcement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission today, you have received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provided a representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you must furthermore abstain from the deliberation or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you had any contact outside this meeting with any person interested in a matter coming before the commission today, you should disclose that nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Large. Mr. Lloyd, appeal procedure?
You bet. All right, most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant, the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-3600 for information on the appeal procedure and application fee.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Before we move on to general public comment, I just want to remind of the board members that are not present that as we go through the agenda, if you have something you wish to state, please make sure that you state your name so we're aware of who is speaking. That also applies to anyone from the public or an applicant that is speaking. Make sure that you speak clearly and that you state your name so we can have that recorded. With that, Madam Secretary, any general public comments?
No public comment.
Thank you very much. Moving on to possible action to approve the agenda. Before we do that, is there any discussion? Not hearing any?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Hill.
I just want to make sure that I am counted as attending. I didn't know if you heard me say that I was here or what.
Thank you. Yes, we do. We have you listed as being present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'll accept the motion to approve the
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Mr. Lawrence, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley, are you on speaker here?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the approval of the draft minutes. We'll break it down into two items. The first one is the April 16th, 2020 draft minutes. Is there any discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll move over to the May 7th, 2020 draft minutes. Is there any discussion or clarification on those draft minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was not present for that meeting and will not be voted, will not vote on that agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, appreciate that. With that, I'll accept a motion to approve the April 16th, 2020 and the May 7th, 2020 draft minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Toulouse.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley, we haven't heard from you. I don't know if you're having troubles or not.
A little bit. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brad Stanley, aye.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Moving on, public hearing. The Board of Adjustment may take action to approve with or without conditions, modify or approve with or without conditions, or deny a request. The Board of Adjustment may also take action to continue an item to a future agenda. With that, we will go to special use permit, case number WSUP 20-0008, 5 Ridges. And I believe Ms. Olander, podium is yours.
Hi, this is Trevor Lloyd. I will be filling in for Ms. Olander today. She's recovering from a procedure, and so she's been out all week. So hopefully you can hear me all, and I'll ready this presentation as soon as I get the go-ahead from the chair.
Okay, just stand by just one. First of all, are there any disclosures on this item from the board members? Hearing none, thank you. Mr. Lloyd,
Okay.
you may proceed.
All right, I'm trying to share my screen. Give me one moment, and I think I got it up now. Okay. Right, so as had been read into record, this is a hearing for special use permit at WSUP 20-0008 for 5 Ridges. For possible action, hearing, and discussion to approve major grading an area of approximately 2.5 acres with 10,582 cubic yards of cut and 10,267 cubic yards of fill to construct a paved emergency access road for the 5 Ridges project and to allow for a utility service use for a 16-inch water main and to allow slopes greater than 3:1 in sections of the access roadway. Bear with me as I seem to be having some technical issues. Trying to find my mouse, I apologize, and I'm not finding it. I had this up and running. Not sure what the issue is. Okay, I think we'll just go ahead and it's working somehow. All right, the special use permit being requested is to allow for a major grading for the purposes of constructing an emergency access road and a 16-inch water line for the neighboring 5 Ridges development in the city of Sparks. So this is not this item before you today is not to litigate that project. It is simply to determine whether or not the SUP should be granted for the emergency access road and water line. All right, the SUP is required for this project for essentially 2 reasons. The first is for the utility services use type for the water line, and the second is for the major grading associated with this request. The property is located in the at the north end of Sun Valley, north of Highland Ranch Parkway. There is an existing dirt road that is used to serve the existing water tank. The project will improve that road with a 20-foot wide paved roadway, which will be maintained by the 5 Ridges HOA. The water line will be located underground adjacent to the roadway alignment. This photo on the overhead is a picture of the existing dirt road that goes up to the water tank, and this is the road that's proposed to be improved. Here's a site plan for the roadway. As you can see, it will be extended to the neighboring property to the east, which is the Five Ridges development. That shows the full extent of that roadway. The proposal triggers the major grading thresholds as more than 5,000 cubic yards are proposed to be graded, including about 10,600 yards of cut and 10,300 yards of fill. More than 10% of the property will or is proposed to be graded, and more than 1,000 yards will be graded on slopes which are greater than 15%. So there's multiple triggers requiring the need for major grading. The applicant is asking to vary certain standards of Article 438, which is our grading code. The applicants are asking the board to vary the grading standards to allow for 2-to-1 slopes less than 100 feet from the property lines. Currently, the code does, in fact, allow 2-to-1 slopes on properties over 5 acres, which this is. However, that they must meet a 100-foot setback from the property line. Applicant in this instance is asking to vary that standard to allow 2-to-1 slopes within 100 feet of the property line. This item was publicly noticed, meets all noticing requirements of NRS and code. There was no HAB meeting held during the cycle for review, and we sent out requests for comments from the CAB members in terms of the paper worksheets. However, we have not received any at this time. Also, the items were sent to all of the applicable reviewing agencies. There were no opposing comments provided, and all of their conditions are included with Exhibit A in the conditions of approval. The staff has determined that the proposed request meets all of the required findings, and staff is able to make the recommendation to support this special use permit. And we offer the following motion for your consideration. I see that the applicant's representative, Mike Raley, is also on the line. I believe he has a presentation as well. That concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions that you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Are there any questions for Mr. Lloyd? Not hearing any? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Is the applicant present and wishing to speak?
Well, can you hear me? I think I went back on mute.
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. For the record, Mike Raley with Christie Corporation, representing Five Ridges Development Company. I think Trevor did a great job in the presentation. I do have a short PowerPoint if the clerk would like to start that. Some of it's going to be quite repetitive from what Trevor said, so I'll skip through that pretty fast, but just wanted to show you a couple additional exhibits if that's available.
Please do.
Can the clerk begin that PowerPoint? I'm not sure if...
Okay.
Just one moment. I think we're trying to bring that up right now.
Great.
Mike, our expectation was that you would be screen sharing. Do you have that capability?
To be honest with you, I don't think it's necessary. Trevor used the exact same exhibits in his presentation. What I think I would just like to note, a couple of additional benefits to this project. Right now, this road, as Trevor mentioned, is dirt and it ends to the tank. By extending it all the way into Five Ridges, not only will it provide a secondary emergency access for the Five Ridges project, it also greatly enhances fire access to that northern part of Sun Valley that's currently landlocked at this time. So that's going to be a significant public benefit when this is done. And as Trevor mentioned, the 2-to-1 slopes that we are proposing to vary within the 100 feet of the property line. That's essentially so that we greatly minimize the amount of grading, and it will result in far less disturbance than if we went with the 3-to-1 slope. So another benefit there. Also, I think, as Trevor mentioned, we're only disturbing 2.5 acres, which is less than 4% of the overall site. So this really is a fairly minor disturbance overall. With that, I'll wrap up. We are in agreement with all the conditions as outlined in the staff report, and we're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Rayleigh. Hold on one, please. Are there any questions for this gentleman?
I just have one real quick.
Mr. Lawrence?
Hey, Mike, Lee Lawrence here with the Board of Adjustment. I just had a question, wondering if you would be in favor of, in the staff comment and required findings, number 3, under staff comments, it says conditions of approval include requirement to revegetate all disturbed areas. My request would be, would you be willing to use certified noxious weed-free seed in that revegetation effort?
Yeah, in fact, that's would be our standard procedure anyway, so yeah, we would be fine with that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Bet.
Okay. Mr. Rayleigh, I've got just a quick question for you, actually two. For my own edification, what is the distance of the existing road up to the tower now from the development? How far is
You mean
that?
the overall length of the existing road?
Yes, up to from where it is now, from the development up to the tower.
Bear with me, I can actually get you a pretty precise. The existing road that's there now from Warhol Drive up to the tank is about, I want to say 500, 600 feet, and I believe we're extending the road about another 1,500 feet in ballpark terms.
Okay, so in ballparking, the road will be about 2,000 feet from development to development then?
Correct.
Okay, and my other question is, and maybe you can help me out, what is the necessity to actually pave the road for?
It's to allow for secondary emergency access, so year-round service, so that a fire truck can get into the Five Ridges project if need be. The road will be gated with emergency gates, so it's not open to the public. It's strictly an emergency access zone.
Okay, and by having it paved, it I guess just smooths it out and allows more passenger vehicles to travel on it should that be necessary?
It'd be easier for the fire trucks, especially in the wintertime. The homeowners association will be responsible for maintenance, so they can plow that road if it's paved and ensure that a fire truck can get in year round.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions for this gentleman? Okay,
Hi, this is Brad Stanley. I have a question, hopefully for Mike. Mike, how are you?
Good.
Good. This may have been I may have missed this, overlooked it, but there's mention here of slopes that are greater than 3-to-1 and the grading on the slopes. About what is the acreage of the greater than 3-to-1?
The overall acreage is hard to determine. We do have some 3-to-1 slopes spots, but generally we're using 2-to-1 slopes, and the reason being we're directly matching existing grade. So those cut slopes, for example, they blend right into the natural topography of the site. Where if we went to 3, you would see that visual scarring up this hillside. By doing, you instantly match, and so therefore you avoid all that excessive disturbance.
Okay, thank you. Did you, in that response, indicate about how many acres there were that were greater than?
We haven't run that calculation, but I'm guessing probably somewhere in the ballpark of about an acre.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Rayleigh, I've got one more question for you. In the change of the degree of slope that you're requesting here, have you talked to the fire department, and do they have any problems with it being of that grade to maneuver their trucks through?
We have reviewed this with the city of Sparks. The actual project is in the city of Sparks. So the city of Sparks Fire Marshal has reviewed the plans and has approved those.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for this gentleman? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close it. Thank you, Mr. Riley, we appreciate that. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter?
No public comment.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. Before we go too far with that, Mr. Lawrence, your recommendation or your clarification, I guess I'll throw this to Mr. Large. Does that need to be clarified within the conditions? Sir?
If you want to make it a condition of approval that they actually use what the specified that Mr. Lawrence articulated, then it needs to be in the motion. Mr. Raley represented that is standard for the project they use. So you could either take it on faith or put it as a specific condition of approval. In that case, you need to do it as amended. The condition needs to be amended.
Thank you, sir. We'll bring it back to the board and discuss that, I guess.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Toulouse.
could I ask Mr. Lawrence to clarify what your wishes are as far as the weed-free? Because I do see a reference to certification of any imported earthen materials will be certified weed-free.
Okay, that's materials, okay? And what we're talking about is if fill is brought from South Reno, from the Damani Ranch area, we don't want any tall
Right.
white top in it when we're doing a development or something like that, which has happened really bad in the Verdi area out there. I was just looking at it last week. So that's the fill. That's got to be clean fill from a clean area. The seeds that is used to revegetate an area should be certified as noxious seed free. And it really should be in everything the county does. It should specify that not only certified fill, but certified noxious weed seed be used in, as a standard when re-vegging an area. If you get some Medusa head rye or something in there and you're putting down grass seed, you're just going to spread that problem.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, and I agree wholeheartedly, and in my lengthy tenure on this board, that's always been one of my bones of contention, is that we should have that certified weed-free. So in the conditions of approval, condition 1G does reference imported earthen materials shall be certified weed-free. So what we need to do is then add a certified weed-free statement to condition 1F, if I'm following along with what your thinking is.
You're following along exactly
Okay,
with that.
so if we just added a statement or another sentence at the end of condition 1F that says all native seed mixes and live PLS seed shall be certified weed-free, would that meet your needs?
Yeah, it absolutely would. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I would like to make that amendment for condition 1F, just adding a statement that all, how did I phrase that? That all native seed mix shall be certified weed-free prior to dispersal.
Thank you, Mr. Toulouse. We appreciate that. I believe one of the members on Zoom wish to speak. Is that correct? Mr. Stanley or Ms. Hill, do you have anything you wish to add?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to jump in here now, too, and I don't want to really... What I have learned over my experience of being on this board is that if we are not specific and spell it out, and we leave it up to people to interpret what we believe should be done or correct, sometimes puts us in a precarious situation. So I concur that we ought to be specific in both items 1F and 1G. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Mr. Toulouse.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with the conditions, with the amended conditions, special use permit case number WSUP 20-0008 for Highland Ranch HOA and Sun Valley Water and Sanitation, having met all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30. Those are consistency, improvement, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and no effect on a military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Just hold one.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Large?
Mr. Toulouse, at this point, can you articulate how you want, specifically how you want condition F to read?
Sure. So we're just going to add a sentence, a second sentence to that, and it will read, all native seed mix shall be certified weed-free prior to its dispersal on the site.
With one noxious weed-free.
Then we will say certified certified noxious weed-free prior to dispersal on the site.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there a second on the motion?
Second?
Mr. Lawrence, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda is chair and board items. Future agenda items. Is there any issues or items that board members would like to be added as a future agenda item?
Yeah, I just have one comment, is that our last work on the noxious weed-free seed be incorporated into this process so that we don't have to do this again, or, when somebody comes up, they got to put seed down to re-veg an area. They should be using certified noxious weed-free seed.
I don't want to speak for, this is Mr. McEllarge for the record. I don't want to speak for Mr. Lloyd, but we can have staff bring that back at least, or at least have a comment for the commission in regard to whether or not we need to amend county code, or whether that should be a standard put into our conditions of approval on future.
If I can,
Okay,
if
go
I
ahead.
can speak through the chair?
Let's hold on, let me make sure we're on the right one. I'm not too sure if that should be under item B, requests for information from staff. So the question would be is, do we have any agenda items from the board at this time? Hearing none, let's move on to number B, and we'll go forward with what Mr. Lawrence just spoke on. Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's an excellent point from Board Member Lawrence, and I think we can simply add that language to our standard list of conditions. I think that's an excellent addition to that for all grading, grading plans or projects that require, this kind of language.
Excellent.
Mr. Lloyd, I concur also. I think that's probably the best way to go, and it cleans things up from now and into the future when we address issues like this. Is there any other requests for information from staff, from the board members? Hearing none, we'll move on. Director and legal counsel items, report on previous Board of Adjustment items. Mr. Lloyd, do you have anything for us?
No items to report on. I just wanted to mention that this is Board Member Toulouse's last meeting. Certainly going to miss him. He's been a valuable asset, valuable member of this board, as well as a valuable member to as a county resident, and we're certainly going to miss him. Would invite Mr. Toulouse back next month as we can honor him, and we will honor him with a resolution of appreciation.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. I appreciate that. Are there any
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Toulouse.
I don't know if this is the appropriate moment for me to say a few things. If it's not, just let me know, and I'll say, would like to say a few things prior to adjournment.
Yes, and I would, I have some things I'd like to speak on too, but I'd like to hold them right after general public comment before we adjourn. We'll do that as the final hurrah or move on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Legal information and updates. Mr. Large?
Nothing specifically legal to report, Mr. Chairman and board members. I would echo Trevor's sentiments in regard to Mr. Toulouse. He's going to be missed, and he's a valuable asset on this commission for quite a great deal of time. So, we hope to see him back in the future, and we can honor him next month. So, with that, I'll submit.
Thank you, Mr. Large. With that, Madam Secretary, anyone from the general public wishing to speak at this time?
No public comment.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I would like to step in here too and just take a moment to personally thank you, Kim, for your time with the board. I mean, you were already here when I came on. You had far more experience than I did, but it was a pleasure watching you in all the capacity that you held up here, especially as chairman. And I followed that, and I learned a lot just watching you guide us through a variety of things. Your expertise in the various fields that you hold, your professionalism, your brevity when it comes to addressing issues will be truly missed. You were definitely an asset to this board. Thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, I'd like to also thank Kim. He was also here when I showed up, some 6.5 years ago, I think it is now. And I've always felt a great comfort with him on this board because he relates very well to environmental issues and the science aspect, which I think he has brought a great deal of insight from his wildlife background and some of the issues we've had here. And absolutely very, very valuable to this community and to the county. Thank you, Kim. I really like working with you.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any other comments?
Well, I'd like to send my appreciation to Kim for his expertise and commitment to the board. And, it's such a valuable asset to the community to have people like him on the board, and it's appreciated.
Thank you, Christine.
This is Brad Stanley, and I also want to thank Mr. Toulouse on my tenure on the board. I learned a great deal from his questions, his suggestions, and always particularly pleased that he pays very astute attention to the detail and how it will affect the community, and is very forthright in making his suggestions and improvements known and acting on them. So I have a great deal of respect.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Okay. With that, I do hope that you will be back next month so we can officially honor you for the time, energy, and effort that you spent on this board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's going to probably depend on how good the fishing is. I would like to take the opportunity to say a couple of things. I kind of feel like I've been here forever, kind of a monument sitting up here. I've been here, I think, a little over 11 years on this board, and seen a lot of people come and go, a lot of projects come and go. And I have to say that in my opinion, it is incumbent on every citizen to participate in public service and to be involved in their community in some way. And this just happened to be one of the ways that I chose to do it, and was fortunate enough to be appointed by 2 different commissioners, by the way, both of whom are a different political party than I. So I just wanted to say that. And I think it's very important that that every citizen in Washoe County participate in the public process, and then want to encourage everybody to do that and to become involved, because you can't complain about decisions that are made unless you're involved in the process. And this board in particular, I think gives everybody an opportunity to express their opinions on decisions that are made. And this board has made decisions that sometimes are not exactly what staff wanted, because it's an independent board. We are appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and we do maintain a pretty high degree of independency. I would also like to say that the staff that I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with over the years is excellent. Couldn't be any better. Mr. Lloyd, Roger Pelham, Julie Olander, Eva Kraus, Bill Whitney, Bob Webb, Mr. Large, and your predecessors, and there's been, I think, 3 of them, have all been excellent. And the spirit, dedication, and professionalism of Washoe County employees, at least the ones that I've encountered in my tenure here, is absolutely fantastic, and I don't think is any better anywhere else. So, and then finally, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed it. I've made friends here. Hope to continue some of those friendships, and I wish you all the very best in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toulouse.
You're welcome.
I don't think anything else needs to be added. I think that's a very powerful and good note to end this on. With that, we are adjourned.